Hello friends, welcome to CEC Live Lectures. Dear friends, today in this session we are going to talk in detail on global economy. We are going to discuss on the significance of global economy as well as we are going to discuss on the anchors of global economy. For the discussion on the topic, we have with us in our studios Dr. Amna Mirza. Dr. Amna Mirza is Assistant Professor in Department of Political Science, SPM College, University of Delhi. Dr. Amna Mirza is a prolific professor, a dynamic professor who believes in giving her best. Friends, she has authored numerous books and her books are admired by the students as well as academicians a lot. If you have any question pertaining to today's topic, that is on global economy, friends, feel free to talk to us through our toll-free number. Our number is 1800-110-430. I repeat, our number is 1800-110-430. You are requested to call in the last 10 minutes of the lecture as well as we request you to ask questions pertaining to the topic, that is global economy. Now, I would like to welcome our guest, Dr. Amna Mirza, once again. Hello, ma'am. Welcome to the lecture.
Hello, listeners. Today, we will be discussing a very significant topic of global economy. We shall understand what drives global economy, what is its significance, what are the anchors or main institutions that are driving the global economy. At the outset, let's understand the idea of global economy comes from the notion of globalization. The end of the Cold War was the right time that led to the creation of global economy because the world was no more seen as capitalism versus socialism. There was victory of the ideas of liberal democracy, which somehow gave impetus to free flow of market forces. This was accompanied by the fact that economic, political, technological developments became the driving force behind various dimensions of globalization. This process increased interdependence in our everyday life, in our society, and above all, in our economic processes. Because what we see, that is, national policies, domestic economies became linked to global international forces. This later becomes the principal determinants of economic, that is the most important thing of global economy. Today we see most nations are pursuing neoliberal economic policies, to name a few: deregulation, disinvestment, privatization, where market forces guide the major work. This has been produced by international compulsions. This is why we say globalization has been produced by international economic cooperation. The functions of the global economy then are determined by two factors: market and policies of the nation. Now, market is a powerful force in determination of international economic and political affairs, because the interaction between the international political and domestic forces produce a new field of study for us. This what we call as global political economy. Here we have to see both political and economic analysis is essential to understand the functioning as well as evolution of global economy. Now, global institutions, they are essential. Why? Because they promote global economic stability. They reform the global economic order. Global institutions are also known as anchors of the global political economy. Once again, let's take our discussion to our next level, that is global economy. Dear listeners, now this meaning of what is global has changed with time. Let's understand during the 19th century, global would mean just exchange of goods and services. However, today in the 21st century, this idea of global is technological, innovative, scientific category which connects what is local with what is international. It is also about what is the capacity of dissemination of events of process, that what happens in one part of the world impacts the other. That is, today globalization, globality, globalism, all these words are frequently used. So therefore, globalization highlights the dynamics of change, of transformation. The globalization also deepens and expands analysis of economic ideas, and this leads to new debates on global economy. Now, globality. What is globality? It is a condition, circumstances that bring about globalization. Globalism is an ideological perspective. It is about ideas, values, our assumptions that guide or drive various approaches. Now, global economy involves several dynamics. It at some time makes things available cheaper. On the other hand, it may improve the efficiency of a key process. At some time, it may give us new pool of resources, or on the other hand, it may give us new market. So what we see here is that globalization expands and deepens the ideas that are connected with global economy. This is why whenever we study global economy, we don't just keep the focus on exchange of goods and services, but it is also a mechanism to get forces together, to think about processes that connects the world. Global economy encourages the growing economic activities. And how does it do that? Through global leadership, through global mindsets, new values, and somehow the idea of a global world which is interconnected, interdependent with a new stage of development of world. So what we see here is that today world is becoming much and much more integrated. Communication is rampant. Today there are cross-border networks, and all this, somewhere we see that there is segmentation, somewhere there are new crises for national markets, for domestic policies. So what we see here is that global economy then presents challenges as well as opportunities for us. At one point of time, it may mean fragmented economies getting together into one economy, whereas at the other side we must see getting together in the sense of interchange, interface, exchange, other, etc. So what we see here is that rapid changes are the order of the day. Today, barriers to free trade, free flow of goods, services, capital are being reduced, or attempts are being made to reduce them. The volume of cross-border trade and investment has definitely rapidly increased than what it was there in the past. So what we see here is that national economies are becoming closely integrated into a single, interdependent, global economic system. And what facilitates this operation of idea of integration and interdependence? It is much more rapid pace of changes in technology, communications, new ideas, reducing investment barriers that are driving towards global economy. This interaction, integration among the people, among the economies, bringing nations together has also led to our social life being organized on a new parameter in the global scale. So what we see here is, amidst all this, economic cooperation between other nations, all this is strategically important also for the growth of global economy and for analysis for us also for global politics. Because international economic relations play an important role in world affairs. Today, the level of global economic integration is definitely higher than before. This shows that globalization has definitely increased the size of global economy. And in this process, centralized decision making. Yes, we have to think that can decision making be centralized? This brings us to an important aspect that does globalization or an internationalization have different meanings? Let's understand here. Further, internationalization is the increasing importance of international relations, cooperation of treaties, alliances, whereas globalization signifies a process of integration of national, regional economies into global economy, and this focuses on the speed of economic integration. Now, before we jump on to the understanding of what are the anchors that lead to global economy, that drive the global economy, let's take the debate forward by understanding of globalization more. Globalization, as we have discussed, it is an interconnected, interdependent, that is leading to the idea of which is interconnected as well as interdependent. What happens in this interconnected and interdependent world? There is free transfer of capital, goods, services cutting across national borders. Globalization argues for space-time compression, and within the space-time compression, how global economy becomes a factor of study because there is market segmentation as well as increasing interdependence in the markets. National markets are much more dependent on each other. So what we see here is it's not only about integration of individual states and nation, but also making integration amongst the economies. And there are various processes, as we have seen, like movement of products, capital, labor, managerial techniques, ideas, culture that facilitate it. So what we see here is that the process of international trade and investment is driving it, and this is aided by information technology. However, what we need to see that no process is independent of its own. It has its own pros as well as cons. If at one point globalization increases the flow and interconnectedness of goods, information, things, people, trade, values, culture, even media, but at the same time it also has impact on our environment, on our human systems, on several other subsystems within which we exist. So production and trading of goods and services affect businesses, consumers, government agencies. Political events today somewhere are influenced by global economy. Many times trade policies of countries have a wide-ranging impact, and they are made with the insight on global economy. So what we see here is that global economy operates in a way through the process of globalization that what is local has an impact on the global, and what is global has an impact on the local. And amidst this, global economy increases total production, consumption of goods, increases in standard of living, lowers transaction cost, production cost, and of course, but alongside that, we have to see that amidst this exports and imports, amidst the saga of influencing GDP, investment, employment of the economy, there are certain negative fallouts also. So what we see here is globalization is a complicated issue. It has pros and cons. Greater globalization is bringing with itself much more risk of its own. If at one point today there is free flow of economic forces, at the other point there are issues of migration. If at one point today there is issue of increase in volume of international trade and foreign direct investment, at the other point there is an issue of whether mass consumerism is good or bad for society. If at one point there is an issue that there are new trade routes discovered, at the other point there is debate whether global economy and financial system are they stable enough. So new opportunities and challenges are being put forward for the developed as well as developing countries. But the debate comes here is, are these threats and opportunities balanced for both of them? Now new companies are coming up in the global market, and what we see here is with these new companies, the terms of trade of the function of nation and government are also being changed. Today there is this problem of skilled, unskilled, temporary, permanent labor issues, and amidst this there is this problem of high income, low income. So beyond all this, we see that globalization is working at the economic realm in a much more complicated realm, and this context of complicated, contested notion of globalization indeed leads to challenges and opportunities for global economy also. And with this, let's take our discussion forward towards understanding that what are global economy main anchors of the global economy. See, an economy works by certain institutions. Institutions are often the need of a society. Institutions, they often lead to setting up the narrative of what can guide the global perspective. So one thing is for sure, that globalization has changed the function and nature of the state. The role of nation and the state is somewhere being challenged in all aspects of social, economic, cultural, political life. So why then the study of global economy becomes significant? Because this global economy driven by global capitalism is somewhere the dominating yardstick of our everyday life. Global economy has increased connectivity and interdependence, be business, markets around the world. Today, international markets present opportunities, and study of global economy can make us understand that how in all regions of the world firms are going global, new issues and challenges are there for the state, and how can we by this study take advantage of the opportunities to do business with other countries. Global market, as we have seen, holds challenges as well as opportunities, and this global economy focuses on a particular neoliberal model where market economy shows the way out. Market decides the policy outcomes. It is this neoliberal perspective that somewhere gives more primacy to the market over state. So global economy is a powerful force of development, and our study of this powerful force of development can really help us to put other factors of development and growth on a new basis. It will enable us to understand the new relations emerging out of these changes, and of course it will make us understand efficiency and equity yes, these two significant issues in the global economy. Today, capital mobility, yes, movement of capital from one part of the world to the other, in the form of foreign direct investment, in the form of foreign institutional investment exists. How can we understand that? By deeper understanding of global economy. Labor markets, yes, labor markets are becoming much more global. Today there are ample amount of research, ample amount of new horizons like management. So what we see here is that when the world is becoming strongly integrated, then such a study to understand what are the anchors of this study, of this new process, will definitely increase our knowledge, and this knowledge is the driver of productivity and economic growth too. So the general aim of study of global economy would be to understand what are the forces that go in to restructure the world economy in accordance with the accepted and existing neoliberal principles. So what we see here is that today there are micro as well as macro perspectives to understand this very close relationship between global politics and global economics. And this study somewhere gives the basis for understanding what to and how to usher political stability, democratization, international cooperation, peace, amongst others, because today there are all forces that are interconnected. And due to global economy, further integration of world is the definite accepted norm. And with this, there is evidence that has also suggested that a sane study on the benefits of global economy will definitely go a long way in a helpful manner for the developed as well as developing world. Because what we see here is that world has battled crisis, be it 97, 98, the recent 2007, 2008 recession, or be it any data that comes across growing income inequalities, data on unemployment. All these can be better dealt with if we understand the threats and challenges what global economy presents to us. And when we try to understand global economy, it is essential to see that the role of economic factors in the determination and international economic affairs, they are somewhere working in a manner that nations are integrated, that impact on one is felt on the other, that somewhere can significantly alter the global distribution of economic and political power. So what we see here is that both markets and both nation state, they are playing an important role in determining the character of the global economy. And what we see here is that amidst this, markets, labor, capital, they have their own challenges, they have their own dynamics. And there is no doubt today that worldwide dimension of economy has become much more accepted and significant. With this, when we see that relationship and interaction between political and economic forces are a norm of the day. So what we see, the outcome here is that it is just not about study of issues, but it is also about the mainstream perspective on how do we take things forward. Now, IR has been, or international relations, has been a discipline of debates. So first debate in IR, the realism. What do they say about global politics? They say that somewhere statism leads to self-help, leading to survival. There are no universal moral principles. So therefore they say this is all about power politics, and if nations compete in international institutions in global economy, what is bad about that? The next perspective, liberal theories. They give primacy to freedom of the individuals. Nations should work together to maximize prosperity and minimize conflict. So, liberalism would definitely give much more thumbs up, give much more positive ideas to global economy working in a manner to balance competition amongst interests. Because what we see here is that after the Second World War, liberal theories and ideas had a considerable impact on the discipline of international relations that even later somehow becomes transformed into the idea of Washington consensus, that somewhere which believes that accelerated liberalization definitely makes life better. And amidst all this, the Marxist perspective would say that idea of a global economy is nothing but just leading to or concealing the capitalist class differences. So, what we see here is that perspectives clash with each other. There is cooperation at one point of time, there is somewhere compromises too. And within this, the framework of global economy exists. And this framework of global economy then reduces down itself to the anchors or the institutions that guide it. And always remember that institutions are the forces of integration, but somewhere their work may be in such a manner that in place of integration there have been criticisms about their practices also. So, dear listeners, when we see at how international organizations today are coming forward to solve problems of incomplete information, transaction costs, disparity in trade, alongside that there are other issues how international organizations benefit humankind for a better world. So, with this we move on to anchors of global politics, and 4 anchors today we will be discussing, that is the IMF, the World Bank, the WTO and multinational corporations.
With this note, thank you, and thank you so much for giving us in-depth knowledge on today's topic. Friends, there is a lot more for you in store. You are just requested to be with us as we are going to be back after a short break, and we would be discussing on the anchors as Dr. Amna Mirza herself said. So keep watching us. Thank you. Hello friends, welcome back to this session. Friends, as you know that today we are talking on global economy in detail. In the previous session, we discussed on the significance of global economy, and as promised that we would be talking on the anchors of a global economy. Here we are, and for the discussion we have with us in our studios Dr. Amna Mirza. Dr. Amna Mirza is Assistant Professor in Department of Political Science, SPM College, University of Delhi. Friends, if you have any question pertaining to today's topic, feel free to talk to us through our toll-free number in the last 10 minutes. Our toll-free number is 1-800-110-430. I repeat, our number is 1-800-110-430. Now, I would like to welcome our guest, Dr. Amna Mirza, once again. Hello, ma'am. Welcome back.
Welcome back, listeners. And yes, now we will take the debate forward by understanding anchors of the global economy. Let's understand history first. After the Second World War, we had numerous international organizations like the United Nations, institutions of the Bretton Woods system. Now, these international organizations reflected an awareness of the need for cooperation among states for issues like power politics, economics, human rights, development. An international organization take a variety of forms, and within these forms, global governance encompasses a range of formal as well as informal processes. Global governance then involves various actors and global markets. The World Trade Organization was established on 1st January 1995. The WTO, as it is famously called, replaced the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. The organization is run by its member governance. All major decisions are made by membership as a whole, and decision making is taken by consensus. The WTO operates as the jury and judge of global trade disputes. It serves as a forum for negotiating trade deals between and among its members. The WTO works to eliminate or lessen trade barriers and tariffs. A major contribution of WTO is to promote the idea of sustainable growth in the world economy. Whenever we see that there is removal of regulatory, economic and political barriers to the movement of goods, services, capital, labor across nation borders, establishment of international institutions to govern international economic activities and transaction. So what we see that at times national interests and world interests can be conflicting, especially in trade policies. In this case, the world economy needs a system of rules. A number of several new problems have to be addressed. Competition policy, like aggressive trade policy, regulation. What can be mechanisms to stabilize and strengthen the world order? It is the WTO that seeks to adhere and answer to it. The World Trade Order is based on three main principles: principle of liberalization, non-discrimination, reciprocity. Some specific principles support and specify these three main principles. The simple idea of World Trade Organization is to therefore reduce trade barriers. Trade policy measures should not discriminate against countries. All countries should be treated equally in trade related matters. The principle of reciprocity implies that concessions have to be granted mutually. That is, tariff cut in one country has to correspond to an equivalent cut in the other country. This is practiced by bilateral demand supply system. Now, trade is an anchor of global economy, the other significant anchor of global economy rotates around the idea of money, finance. With this, we come to our next anchor, IMF, or International Monetary Fund. The International Monetary Fund was established in July 1994 by the then 45 government representatives which took part in the Bretton Woods Agreement. The main aim of IMF is to ensure stability of the international monetary system. The IMF provides technical assistance and training to help countries build expertise and institutions also that they need for economic stability and growth. Today, if you look at the membership of IMF, there are 184 countries. IMF encourages its 184 members to adopt policies that foster economic stability, reduce their vulnerability to economic and financial crisis, attempt to raise living standards, provide the forum to discuss and deliberate national, regional and global consequences of several international policies as well as their own policies. The IMF, when we look at its structure and functioning, it is governed by and accountable to its member countries through its Board of Governors. There is one governor from each member country, typically maybe the finance minister or central bank governor of the respective country. Now, IMF has a weighted voting system as opposed to WTO, which has one nation, one vote. IMF has weighted voting system. IMF promotes international monetary cooperation through a permanent institution, and it provides a basis for consultation and collaboration on international monetary problems. The IMF seeks to facilitate the expansion and growth of international trade and contribute to the promotion and maintenance of high levels of employment, income, development, productive resources, amongst others, for all its members. The IMF tries to promote exchange rate stability to maintain orderly exchange rate agreements amongst members and avoid competition exchange rate and depreciation. The IMF works in a way to assist in the establishment of a multilateral system of payments in respect of current transactions between members and in the elimination of foreign exchange restrictions which hamper the growth of world trade. The IMF also attempts to give confidence, to its members by making the general resources of the fund temporarily available to them under adequate safeguards, thus providing them with the opportunity to correct the maladjustments in the balance of payments, the difference between exports and imports, without resorting to measures destructive of national or international prosperity. And above all, in accordance to the above, to shorten the duration and lessen the degree of disequilibrium in the international balances of payments of members. Now, from early 1980 onwards, IMF has been increasingly focused on supporting developed countries afflicted with debt crisis, and in due course work on transition in its wider role. So therefore, IMF is also responsible for managing financial crisis and helping to ensure that national or regional crises do not develop into global crisis. So what we see is that IMF nevertheless has become an increasingly controversial institution. This was linked to the provision of loans that it gave to developing and transition countries to work on conditions of structural adjustment program. This reflected an unqualified faith in free markets and free trade. In 2009-2008, global financial crisis existed, and IMF was also then criticized for not doing adequate work or not doing adequate thought process for how to prevent the crisis. With this, we move to the next anchor of the global economy, that is the World Bank. The World Bank comprises of the World Bank Group, which has institutions like International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, IBRD, International Development Association, IDA. The president of the World Bank is responsible for the overall management of the bank. The board of directors oversees the approval of loans, guarantees, new policies, budget and key strategic decisions. Now, just like IMF, the voting in the World Bank too is weighted according to the financial contribution of the member states. The World Bank was created as a result of the Bretton Woods Agreement of 1994 with its first loan, that is $250 million to France, and that was for post-war reconstruction being made in the year 1947. Let's understand the functions of the World Bank. The purpose of World Bank is to promote economic and social progress in developing countries by helping them to raise productivity so that their people may live a better and fuller life. The World Bank is an intermediating between investors one side and recipients on the other side, borrowers on the one side, lending on the other side. Its owners are the governments of 180 member nations. Today, the World Bank is one of the world's leading organizations which is concerned with the issues of development and poverty reduction. The main functions of the World Bank then includes seek to promote the economic development of the world's poorer countries. The World Bank tries to assist developing countries through long-term financing of development projects of their programs. It seeks to provide the poorest developing countries special financial assistance through the International Development Association. It encourages private enterprises in developing countries through its affiliate, that is the International Finance Corporation. It acquires most of financial resources by borrowing on the international bond market. Now, like any institution, World Bank also has its critiques. The critiques of the World Bank have argued that its financing of development is insufficient. That is, record of reducing poverty is poor. The bank is blamed for implementing neoliberal biased structural adjustment policies and harm of environment. The 2008 World Development Report of the World Bank was concluded that with this idea that rural sector was crucial for poverty alleviation and structural adjustments place heavy burdens on the poor. The bank started to place less emphasis on macroeconomic reforms and greater emphasis then on structural, social and human aspects of development. The bank has also collaborated with the UN in every region and sector, and its engagement has deepened since the adoption of Millennium Development Goals, and now it is called as Sustainable Development Goals. The World Bank and IMF are distinct entities, but they work together in close cooperation. So what we see that how their functions are interdependent. Let's look at the bank's activities have increasingly reflected the realization that the pace of economic and social development accelerates only when sound underlying financial and economic policies are in place. The IMF has also recognized that unsound financial and economic policies are often deeply rooted in long-term inefficient use of resources that resist eradication through short-term adaptations of financial policies. The IMF is not a bank, and the IMF then resources then that come from quota subscription or membership fees or paid by IMF's 182 countries are often under scanner. Each member contributes through this pool of resources a certain amount of money proportionate to its economic size and strength. So IMF is more like a credit union whose members have access to a common pool of resources to assist them in times of need. The other significant anchor of global economy, the last one, that is transnational cooperation. The transnational cooperation, as called as TNC, is a corporation, firm or organization with resources to control value-added activities in two or more countries. When we look at the World Investment Report of 2016, transnational corporations are defined as legal entities or entities without legal personality consisting of parent companies and their foreign affiliates. The parent company is defined as the enterprise that controls the assets of other entities in countries other than mother country, usually by owning a capital stake. Foreign affiliate is a legal entity or entity without legal personality in which investor as a resident in other economy holds a share that allows long-term interest in managing this company. Foreign direct investment constitutes a transnational corporation and activity. Transnational corporations engage in international transaction through various channels like trade, international production. International trade and productions are alternative means of delivering goods and services to foreign market. TNCs encourage global competition as well as transfer of technological know-how among countries. Transnational corporations are directly affecting new trends in international business, global competitiveness on international markets, as well as economies of states. TNCs are a result of scientific and technological developments. This has been one of the most important and dominating phenomena of modern political economy. TNCs, they bring jobs, capital, technology. The number and size of transnational corporations have significantly increased, and this has indeed had an impact on global economy and world politics. Transnational corporations are responsible for most foreign direct investment. Therefore, TNC may be defined as a firm which brings together foreign direct investment in more than one country and controls income generating assets in a number of countries. And when we look at today the processes, internationalization creates a basis for globalization through increasing transnationalization driven by foreign investments. Most of the transnational corporations are headquartered in developed countries. So here is this north-south debate. Like the IMF, WTO, World Bank, transnational corporations too have their own sides of pros and cons. Governments of developing countries may seek to attract TNCs because the corporations can provide the capital that a country lacks to invest. The government provides the facilities and incentives such as 5 to 10 years tax-free arrangements, liberalize the economy to attract TNC in the country. Firms use the FDI channel to acquire controlled interest in foreign production facilities, either by purchasing existing facilities or by buying new ones. TNCs use advanced technology and management for mass production. Transnational corporations have the potential, they are seen as potential instruments to grow the economy of the host country. They have access to a variety of resources and advanced technology that can improve the standard of living of the citizen of the host country. TNCs support free market system. They have achieved and demonstrated the ability to influence the direction of political and economic policies both at national and international level. TNC's ability to expand and generate profit has come to be perceived as a precursor, unnecessary condition for economic growth. FDI can benefit a host country by bringing capitals, skill, technology, jobs, but those benefits, yes, also come at a cost. Because when a foreign company brings rather than a domestic company produces products, the profits from that investment go abroad, overseas. They are more concerned about their own profit than with the welfare of the host country. Integration across economic sectors and the growing importance of intra-firm trade allows TNCs to operate as economies in their own right. TNCs exert enormous economic power and political influence. Firms are increasingly becoming an interdependent political agent. Their economic significance is reflected in the fact that they account for about 50% of world manufacturing and over 70% of world trade. So, dear friends, when we look at the conclusion, today we see that global economy is a significant tool for study of analysis in international relations. The idea of global economy existed even in the past in terms of exchange of goods and services. But this global economy today has become much more diversified because of the process of globalization, neoliberalism, capitalism, privatization. Today, global economy has led to a world which is integrated, which is dependent and much more diverse. The functioning of the world global economy is determined both by markets and policies of the nation states. Today, there are economic and technological forces that are shaping the policies and interests of the individual nation and political relations also amongst nations. Today, there is a state market debate, and within this, the anchors of the global economy, the WTO, the IMF, the World Bank, transnational corporations need to be studied. Market is indeed a powerful force in determination of economic and political affairs. For this reason, we have to see the significance the global economy and its anchors hold for our study. So dear listeners, thank you so much for listening to us. We hope that this debate on global economy, its significance, the anchors that drive it was valuable.
With this note, thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again for giving your precious input to this particular topic and giving us a vivacious session on global economy. Friends, you are requested to write to us at info.cec@nic.in. This is the ID where you can post your questions as well as you can post your feedback for this pertaining lecture. The lecture is going to be uploaded on YouTube soon. So keep watching us and keep writing us. We will be waiting for your mails and questions. With this note, thank you so much.